So Prashantatma Vigatabhihi Brahmachari Vrate Stitaha Manas Sanyamya Macchittaha Yukta Asita Matparaha. Bhagavan says that after sitting on your meditation seat, when the mind has become absolutely silent, when one has become free from all fear, becoming free from all fear, with a firm resolve to attain that state of realization, manas sanyamya, controlling the mind, macchittaha, keep your mind in me, in that self, in Atma. Yukta asita matparaha, considering that Atma as your supreme goal, as the ultimate state of realization or attainment. So when one follows this path as shown by Bhagavan, Bhagavan says you will attain that state of nirvana, freedom from all bondage, freedom from all limitation and impurity, and will attain my state. You will become one with me. Person will gain enlightenment. Some precaution Bhagavan says, a person who eats too much, doesn't eat, or sleeps too much, or doesn't sleep at all, will not be able to attain this state of meditation. So we should make our life also more moderate and balanced. Balanced in eating, balanced in recreation, balance in all activities, not too much. All extremes should be avoided. And such a person who leads his life also in a balanced way, the meditation will become a gateway to all happiness. All sorrows will get destroyed. Yogo bhavati dukkhaha. The yoga will be the elimination of all sorrow. Now when we practice this meditation as guided by Bhagavan, how do we know that we have reached that state? What are the signs? How do I see? What should I see? What are the signs? Like we are going on a long journey, we see some signs on the way, some those names and all, milestones. So what are the milestones on the way towards that state of enlightenment? How do I know that I am going on the right direction? So Bhagavan in the following verses, verse number 18 onwards, he indicates some signs. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanneva vatisthate nisprahas sarvakamebhyah yukta ityuchyate tada yada viniyatam chittam atmanneva vatisthate. Yada means when we have attained this state, then understand we have reached the ultimate goal of meditation. Yada viniyatam chittam, when the chitta, our mind, which is viniyatam, which has come very well under our control, which has become still, which has become silent, which is not running after any objects, which is like our friend and has come under our control, such a mind Atmani eva avatishtate, when it resides only in the self, when in that mind no other thoughts are there except the thought of the self. When the mind resides only in the self, there are no other notion, no other feelings, no other thoughts, no other concepts except the Atma. Chittam Atmani eva. Eva means in the self alone. Avatishthate, when it gets established, when it is stationed in the self. Nisprahas sarva kamebhyah, and totally detached from all other objects, all other pleasures, all other thoughts. When we attain such a state, Bhagavan says, yukta ityuchyate tada. Then it is said the person has become yukta, has reached the state of samadhi, absorption in the self. See, our mind is made up of thoughts, and when we keep thinking of one particular object, let us say I keep thinking of the flower, all the thoughts keep on going toward the flower. So I have, when that thinking becomes too focused and too concentrated, then I become unaware of everything else. Only the thought of flower alone is there. That's called concentration. In Srimad Bhagavad, there is a story of a arrow maker, person who was making arrow, and he was so focused on making that arrow that the king's procession was passing by and he did not notice it. So that is called concentration. So mind can get concentrated at one point. But here, and when we are totally concentrated at one point, sometimes we get totally absorbed with it. But here, in case of meditation, the mind should think about the self and get totally absorbed in the self. Self is the even witness of that mind. Self is the one which is illumining that mind. So when we have already studied and understood what is the nature of self, we have to bring the thoughts of the self in the mind. Of that I am that Shivoham, Shivoham, Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. In the beginning we say, Mano Buddhya Hankara Chittani Naham, that I am not the mind, the intellect and all, but Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, Shivoham. I am that pure consciousness, like space, that there is nothing other than I. That pure I consciousness, which is pure existence itself. That thought of self should be brought. Like we see gold ornaments. Let us say there is a gold bangle. We can look at that object as a bangle, or we can look at it as gold. It is just, we have to shift our vision. It is just a little shift within. We can look at it as gold instead of looking at it as bangle. It's more difficult. It's very difficult when we are attached to the name and form. For example, something is written on a board. Instead of reading what is written, to pay attention only on the color of that print or the shape of that print may be very difficult, because the mind is habituated to read immediately. Similarly, the mind has got the habit of thinking of objects and experiencing pleasures in those objects. Here, in the process of meditation, we have to again and again think of the self, that it is the witness of all the states of experience. So even this body is being seen by the self. Our waking state is seen by the self. Dream is also seen by the self. Deep sleep state is also being aware by the self. When I wake up, I remember that I slept very well. That means I was there to experience that deep sleep state. But the mind was not there. The ego was not there. The intellect was not there. But that consciousness was there, illumining that deep sleep state also. That consciousness, which is nameless, formless, free from all limitation, that is the self. The mind has to constantly think about this self. That is called the practice of meditation. It's called sajatiya vritti pravaha. The thoughts of same kind flowing continuously. Same type means of the self only continuously flowing. So when the mind is involved in thinking about the self, and when the attention is shifted toward the self. See, we can think and we can pay attention also at the same time. Sometimes people think of something and their attention is somewhere else. Here we have to think of the self and pay attention to the self also. A lot of people are multitaskers. They will think of one thing, then do something, then attention somewhere. So I don't know how it is done, but in meditation, multitasking is not allowed. One should think of the self and attention should be focused on the self itself. That itself is our practice of meditation. Becoming conscious of our real self, conscious of consciousness. So when this mind becomes absolutely focused on the self, and when our attention is only on the self, chittam atmani eva avatishtate. So slowly the mind gets absorbed in that self only. Slowly all the thoughts also start dissolving and the mind becomes silent in that self. It's like a child who keeps on crying because mother has gone somewhere, and everyone in the family tries to hold the child, tries to quieten the child. But the child doesn't become quiet. Then finally the mother comes, she holds the child, and immediately the child becomes quiet. Silent, because the child recognizes its own mother and becomes absolutely silent. Similarly, this mind is like a little child going after this object and that object, becoming very cranky, crying all the time. So when that mind is kept in the lap of the self, in the lap of Atma, it becomes still, becomes silent. Such a state, when it is reached, the mind is no longer desiring anything else. It's like a person who is very sleepy, no longer desires anything else. He says, you want to eat something? He says, no. You want to go somewhere? No. You want to watch something? No. I just want to sleep. Similarly, the mind doesn't demand, crave for anything. Absolutely at ease in the self. It is neither frightened of anything, nor there is any craving for anything, nor there is any worries about anything. The mind is absolutely still in the self. Sarva kamebhya nispruhaha. Such a state, when it is reached, Bhagavan says, this state is called yuktaha, state of samadhi, absorption. Iti uchyate tada. So our practice of meditation should slowly and steadily make the mind calm, quite peaceful, and by thinking about the self, the attention is shifted to the self, and the mind then, all the thoughts also dissolve, and it gets absorbed in the self. In fact, mind has as though come from the self only. Mind is like like a wave on top of the, I'm just as an illustration, just like a wave we have on the water. So when the water is still, you don't see anything. But when it is little vibrating, you see the wave. So when again the water becomes still, the waves, where do the waves go? They just dissolve in the water. Similarly, mind is like that wave. When all the thoughts are of the self, the attention is shifted to the self, then those thoughts also disappear and only the self alone remains. When we think about some object and get absorbed in that object, then that is called trance. When we think about any object other than the self and get absorbed in that object, that is like a trance. The trance state may give little joy, but that is not the goal which Bhagavan is talking about here. When we think about some mantra, or when we think about some chakra in the body, or some colors, one may get absorbed in that. Because anything we think, mind can get absorbed in that, but that is just a state of trance. But when the mind is thinking about the self and get absorbed in the self, there remains no division of meditator and the object of meditation. Because the meditator is also the self, object of meditation is also the self, and the process of meditation is also the self. The self alone remains. So such a state is called the state of samadhi, yuktaha, yukta ityuchyate tada. This is a natural state, just as waking state is there, dream is there, deep sleep is there. This is also a natural state, but unfortunately we don't have the practice or we don't have the qualification to reach this stage. But once we gain this qualification, then this state is attained. Suppose one has never experienced sleep, let us say deep sleep state, sleep without any dream, and someone explains to that person that this is called sleep and all, that person will feel that it is only meant for yogis, but he doesn't know everyone sleeps. All of us, we go to sleep like anything. Not much qualification is required. Similarly, here, this is also a natural state. Therefore, it is called the fourth. First, second, third we know. Fourth is also part of this. But it's not experienced regularly or at all. Once we attain that state of fourth, the turiya avastha, and abide in it for a long time, all the impurities of the mind will get dissolved and one reaches the state of realization. So this state of samadhi or turiya is now explained with the help of an example. Bhagavan gives an example, an illustration to tell us how the mind exists in this state. He says, Yatha deepo nivatastha nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha yatha yatha deepah nivatastah na ingate. Just as a deepa means a lamp kept in a place which is free from breeze, from wind. So a lamp kept in a windless place a burning lamp, the flame becomes absolutely steady. The beauty is the flame is there, means that it is not what you call extinguished. It is lighted lamp, flame is there, but it is not moving anywhere else. It is absolutely still. Now this flame is compared to our mind in samadhi. The mind is there, mind has not disappeared. Mind is there, but mind has become absolutely still. It has become still in its own state, in my own self. See, this is very beautifully depicted in in the image of Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is lying on that bed of snake, Ananta Shayanam. And this, our Ananta Bhagwan, Shesha Bhagwan, is looking at Lord Vishnu, and on top of him is the whole Brahmanda. Brahmanda is like a ball, like a football. Now to keep a football on a snake is very difficult. He can't be able to balance it. But here he is balancing the entire football of Brahmanda, and he is looking at Bhagwan Vishnu who is lying on him. So this is a pictorial depiction of the state of samadhi, you can say. That snake is like our mind. All the time it was looking outside at various objects. But when it turns its attention within, see the snake, if this is the body of the snake, it will look out. But it's very rare for the snake to turn within like that. So this is a rare snake who has turned within and who is looking inside, and there he happens to see Lord Vishnu, his own self. And when he sees Lord Vishnu, he becomes absolutely still, so still that even the whole Brahmanda remains steady on him without falling down as though. So similarly, our mind, which is all the time restless, going from one object to another, we don't know the experience of a steady mind because it constantly moves from one object to another. Or it is in the state of sleep. But here, mind is awake and not moving anywhere else. It is absorbed in the self. Because there is no disturbance of any other desires. There are no other objects disturbing the mind. Just as the breeze is like some disturbance coming from outside. Similarly, the mind is free from all this breeze. It is absolutely still. So, yatha deepaha nivatastaha na ingate sa upama smruta. This upama, this similarity, this simile, or Bhagavan says, I remember, as a comparison for this mind. Yoginaha yata chittasya, the mind of a yogi whose chitta has come under his control, one who has kept the chitta, his mind, under his control by practicing this meditation. Yunjataha yogam atmanaha, constantly practicing this meditation on the self, one whose mind has become absolutely still, that mind can be compared to the flame of this lamp, which is free from all breeze, and it is absolutely steady. No movement. Because it is at ease in itself. It has reached its destination. Mind is constantly searching for peace. Mind is constantly searching for happiness. In the self, it finds everything. Mind searches for security. It finds it in the self. Mind searches for all perfection. It finds it in the self. Whatever we are seeking in the world outside, we will find it in our own self. And when we find it, at that very moment, the mind's activity stops because it is seeking something. So it has reached the destination. So it is like if you have a desire to obtain something. Let us say I have desire to get this flower. So when the flower is not attained, when I don't have that flower, the mind is constantly restless, thinking, desiring. As soon as I get that flower, what happens to the desire? It just disappears. Because having the flower and having the desire at the same time to attain that flower is not possible. Unless I have gone little bonkers. So if I have the desire to get this flower and I get it, that moment, that particular moment, I don't have any desire to attain that flower. And that moment, my mind becomes absolutely still. Therefore, even in this world, when my desire gets fulfilled, I feel happy, not because of that object which I have attained, but because of the stillness of the mind which is attained, but it comes only for a fraction of a second. Then again it becomes restless. But in that fraction of a second, I experience happiness, I experience bliss. Not because of the object, but because of the silencing of the mind. This silencing of the mind is attained by these yogis by shifting the attention of the mind to the self. Then no dependency on any objects, no need to have any objects. It can be attained without any other conditions. So yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha. So that is what the comparison is given here. Further, Bhagavan says, Yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyate yatro paramate chittam yatra, where at that time when one is in that state of samadhi, in the state of meditation, when uparamate chittam niruddham, when that chitta which has become quiet, which has become silent, is absorbed in the self, has become absolutely still in the self. How? Yoga sevaya, by the regular practice of yoga, by the regular practice of meditation, slowly and steadily the mind becomes still in the self. See, the mind is made up of habit. So we have to, even after knowing that the self is the very source of happiness,